This is the Fat Shark HDO2, and for some freaking reason, this $500 pair of goggles still has the same DVR in it that has been disappointing Fat Shark owners since, I don't know, like the original Fat Shark HD, whatever. And even more annoyingly, the Fat Shark Scout box goggle has a vastly improved DVR that for some reason didn't make it into the HDO2. But that's not what we're here to complain about today. Because this is the ImmersionRC PowerPlay DVR. And this is the exact same DVR that's in the Fat Shark Scout goggles, and it is way freaking better than the DVR that's in these guys. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to compare this DVR to this DVR, and we're going to compare this DVR to the DVR that's in the Orqa FPV.One, because when all is said and done, the Orqa FPV.One is about $100 more than the Fat Shark HDO2. I know it's actually $150 more, but then it comes with some antennas and a battery case, and if you wiggle the numbers just right, you could argue that this DVR, which costs about $100, makes up the price difference between the HDO2 and the Orqa FPV.One. Assuming that the quality, stands up, and you pay $100 for an analog DVR? Well, some of you do. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. Before we get to the footage comparison, let's just take a look at the specs and features of the PowerPlay DVR, because it does bring a little more to the table than just $100 for an analog DVR. But it is a DVR, and it records in H.264 encoding at a 60 frame per second frame rate with a high data rate. All of these things are essential for recording fast motion like FPV video. The H.264 encoding and the high data rate mean that you're going to get less blocking. You'll see this for yourself in the video comparison. And the 60 frame per second means that it records. The 30 frame per second DVR in the original Fat Sharks is a little bit misleading. It's actually throwing out at 1 of every 2 of the NTSC or PAL frames. And that means that the resolution of the image, every other scan line is thrown out, and you have half the vertical resolution, I think is the one. I get them confused. You have half the resolution, whereas with this one, you're getting all of the frames and all of the resolution. So it's not just the H.264 encoding that make things better, it's the fact that you're keeping all of the data that the camera sends and not arbitrarily throwing half of it out. In case you're wondering, the reason they throw half of it out is because they don't want to deal with a thing called deinterlacing, where you have to combine those frames back together. On old CRT televisions, it just did it automatically, or your eye did it, but on digital systems it has to be done manually, and it's complex to get right. But the PowerPlay is more than just a DVR, because it also is a power bank for your goggles. It has two 18500 lithium-ion cells in it, and you can actually mount it to the back of your head strap using this bracket, and you'll plug your goggles into it, and it'll power the goggles. It'll run for a couple hours. It says 3 hours. I've heard more like 1 or 2 hours, 2 hours in real-world conditions, and some people are okay with that. Some people think it should be better. In fact, there's one person who has made a 3D printed back cover for it that lets you use 18650 cells and get a little bit more battery life out of it. So maybe. Personally, I still use my good old regular Fat Shark battery pack, and I just use the 18500s to power the DVR, and it lasts basically all day. I just charge it at the end of the day, and I've never run it all the way down. Let's start by comparing a still image from each of the 3 DVRs. And at this moment, we're looking at the PowerPlay. And let's just check the properties for this clip. And we can see that it is a 720 by 480 clip at 59.94 frames per second. If we take a look at the Orqa, it is a 1280 by 960 image, higher resolution at 60.00 frames per second. And if we look at the Fat Shark DVR, we've got a 640 by 480 at 29.91 frames per second. That's really important that I point out to you guys that the Fat Shark DVR is cutting off the left side of this image right here. That's something that the Fat Shark goggle does, and I don't know why, but if you look in the PowerPlay, you'll see the PowerPlay is also cutting off the edge, and that is not the PowerPlay's fault, that's the HDO2's fault. So don't blame the PowerPlay for the fact that this is cut off. So the Orqa has the highest resolution, but does it capture the best looking image? Here I've found a place where I'm flying around, because a moving image will tell the difference between the DVRs better than a still image is going to look great on all of them. And what we're going to do is we're going to zoom this in to 200% and look at this upper left corner. And I especially want to see the lettering here, because I think the lettering is going to make a difference. And we're going to see those sharp lines of the lettering, how the DVR handles them. So here's the PowerPlay. Here's the Orqa, and on the Orqa I am seeing a little bit of these artifacts here that I didn't see on the PowerPlay. Yeah, the PowerPlay has a little bit of fringing around the letters, but I think the PowerPlay looks better, at least in this specific case. And here's the Fat Shark DVR, and you can see a whole lot of JPEG artifacts and also just a lot of blockiness here in the ceiling, which the PowerPlay has much smoother gradations, and the Orqa. The Orqa actually has interesting. On the Orqa, we have a much smoother gradation here, and it seems like I can see these lines of my ceiling, whereas on the PowerPlay, well, no, they're still there. I only just noticed them. Okay. How about this diagonal jagged line here? Here's the PowerPlay. The Orqa seems to have just a little more detail. And of course the Fat Shark. Let's zoom out a little bit. Here's the Fat Shark. Here's the Orqa. And here's the PowerPlay. Looking at this a little more zoomed out, the PowerPlay seems to have, maybe it's sharpening. I'm not 100% sure what we're seeing here, but it definitely looks like there's maybe more contrast in the details and a less smooth and more sort of craggy looking image. The Orqa, especially look at the back of the chair, look at the gradation in the shadow on the back of the chair. Orqa and the PowerPlay. Very interesting. Well, I gotta tell you, I'm actually a little bit surprised by the results here. I really didn't expect to see very much difference between the PowerPlay and the Orqa. Yes, the Orqa has higher resolution, but how much resolution do you really need to capture this standard definition video feed? I don't know if it's the higher resolution or just something different that Orqa and PowerPlay are doing in their encoding settings, but the Orqa, to my eyes at least, had a noticeably better image. It was much smoother in parts of the image that had gradation, and in parts of the image that had details. The PowerPlay, I wouldn't have said this just looking at the PowerPlay files, but the PowerPlay looked a little over sharpened. Whereas compared to the Orqa, it looked a little bit softer, but the Orqa didn't really seem to be giving up a lot of details. It just seemed to be better. Regardless, the Orqa is only going to matter if you don't already own goggles, or if you're considering buying a goggle in the price range of the Orqa. If you're looking for an aftermarket DVR to add on to an existing system, the ImmersionRC PowerPlay seems like the way to go. There are some other DVRs out there, like there's the FXT DVR. They don't offer the same kind of all-in-one package that the PowerPlay does. Now, the FXT DVR doesn't have a built-in screen, for example. It doesn't even have a built-in battery, which is one of the reasons why when FXT offered to send me that, I declined. You didn't see me review it. I was like, do I have to carry a Fat Shark battery in my pocket FXT? Well, yeah, no, thank you. So if you're looking for a high-quality aftermarket DVR, PowerPlay seems to be the place to go. And the fact that you can also use it to power your goggles, sure, if that's what you want to do, you can do that as well. The one thing I wish the PowerPlay had that it doesn't have is a built-in microphone to capture ambient audio. It can take an AV input, right? It can take an external microphone, although if it's already plugged into your goggles, I'm not sure how it would do that. And there is also an aftermarket mod that lets you add a microphone to, if you're willing to solder to it. But ImmersionRC, why didn't you stick that in there? That's going to do it for this review, though. I can't believe I've put this much time into talking about a $100 DVR for your analog goggles, because we all want to share our analog footage with our, I don't know. There you go, though. They said, should we release this? And I was like, well, yeah, I think some people would buy it. And I've been shocked at how many people are just gaga about the PowerPlay DVR. So maybe I'm just being a hater. I don't know. There are a whole bunch of aftermarket mods that people are doing to the PowerPlay, like this 3D printed back that lets you use 18650 cells, and like the internal mic mod that I mentioned. I'm going to put links to that stuff down in the video description. And do you know what else is in the video description? Affiliate links. Affiliate links to the products. And when you click those links and you make any purchase at the affiliated vendor after clicking those links, I get a small commission, and it's one of the ways I support myself. So if you're going to go buy the PowerPlay, if you're going to go buy an Orqa, if you're going to go buy an HDO, or if you're going to go buy anything else, just click one of my affiliate links before you go. I get a small commission. It really does mean a lot. Thank you guys so much for watching. What do you think? Do you have a PowerPlay? Do you love it? Would you spend $100 on an analog DVR? Some of you would. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. But did I get it right? Did the Orqa win? Or was I totally off base? Or is the improvement not even enough? Like, the HDO DVR is pretty bad, but I mean, like, how good do you need it to be for $100 freaking dollars? Happy flying, everybody.